Penguin Random House Canada presents Black Boys Like Me, Confrontations with Race, Identity, and Belonging by Matthew R. Morris. Read for you by the author. Mom, you've always understood, but I hope this makes things a little bit clearer. Love always. I will offer you my heart. I will offer you my head. I will offer you my body, my imagination, and my memory. I will ask you to give us a chance at a more meaningful process of healing. Kiese Laymon, Heavy. Introduction. How long is this nigga spending on the intro? I thought everything would be different. Everything. As much guidance as I got, I thought I'd have more, or at least enough to get me to the point where I no longer needed direction. I didn't realize that with every step I took along the way, I was being watched. If I'd known that, I might have done certain things differently. Who would have thought that decisions made over toys at Christmas, albums bought on birthdays, and minimum wage jobs would shape the entirety of a grown man's life? How could I foresee that the way my hair grew out of my head would eventually make it easier for me to paint my own skin? I'm not a boy anymore, so I understand why I didn't consider those questions back then. When you blend love with race and manhood and pain over a period of time, many bits of it become hard to digest. Mom inevitably found it too tough to stomach. I think Pops did too. Some of the questions I had to face left me disoriented. Thinking about it now, I don't know when I was taught to question, but my circumstances required it. I'm not an expert in anything but my own experience. I've learned to take shallow heed in seeing things from the outside looking in. I'm also cautious about observing things from the inside looking out. Instead, safety finds me when I stay still, in the dead center, and look around. My learning is not deeply rooted in reading about what black boys like me endured. My thoughts are more tethered to the fuckery me and black boys I knew dealt with. This is some one mic shit Nas rapped about in '01. And in 10 years, I might disagree with parts of this book's message. But probably not. This shit bangs because for so long the same shit banged about in me. These are moments that seared themselves into my lungs, my heart, my head, my muscles, and everything else inside. My earliest memory is of my first day in junior kindergarten. I don't remember getting dressed or who walked me that short distance from our house on Parcel Square to Lucy Maud Montgomery Public School. The faces are now a blur, but there were a lot of them. I put my little knapsack where I was told to, and I sat on the carpet with the rest of my new classmates. A wave of uncertainty washed over my entire body. This unknown space terrified me down to the bone. I knew that I wouldn't be able to survive the day there. I needed to escape. Questions tugged at my brain. Why did I feel so cornered, so small? I know now that the questions I was trying to tease out were, how could I gain a sense of personal control in a room where I held no power? What would happen if this uncomfortable feeling that I did not belong continued to torment my insides? Back then, I merely wondered, why does it feel so awful here? I couldn't cry. Several other children were trying that strategy, and they were met with Kleenexes and gentle rubs on the back. Was there some way I could make myself invisible? I sat motionless, cross-legged on the threadbare gray, red, and blue carpet, eyes glazed and hands tightly tucked between my thighs, hoping that no one would talk to me or even look in my direction. I knew that wouldn't be enough. I came up with an idea so simple yet interwoven with what I was feeling in that moment that I had to tell myself that it wasn't just an idea, but a reality. A gut reaction to what I was emotionally experiencing, so visceral that it had to be true. An idea that scraped at my sense of right and wrong, of good and bad boys. A play that, if successful, would make me safer but threatened who I considered myself to be. I weighed my options, thought about the questions I still had in my head, and got up from the carpet. Miss, I motioned to the teacher. I need to talk to you, I said as I walked to the cubby space where I'd put down my backpack earlier. Yes, Matthew? What do you want to talk to me about? She had the sweet and endearing tone that only kindergarten teachers and grandmothers possess. She looked into my eyes the way that only kindergarten teachers and grandmothers do. My stomach is really hurting me, and so is my head, so bad. I feel a bit dizzy and feel like I might throw up. Miss, I don't want to throw up. I just don't feel good at all, I said, laying it on thick, knowing that this one act, this one performance, this one conversation with the person who held all the power would determine if I would have to endure my all-consuming fear for the rest of the day. My fears were all I could think about. I had to make this work. I had to be a bad boy in order to get what I needed. Oh no, that's not good, Matthew. That's not good. She looked into my eyes and waited for me to reply. Yeah, miss, it's not. And I really want to stay here because I love it and it's my first day and I'm so sad, but I feel so bad right now. I feel so sick right now. I don't know why. I wish I just felt better, but I'm not feeling any better. I might barf. I'm going to barf. I don't want to barf on the first day. I don't want to barf here. Miss, can you please help me? Please, miss. Looking up at her, I thought of everything from eating Brussels sprouts to drinking spoiled milk to watching the washing machine in my dark basement going round and round. The idea I had was no longer an idea but a feeling. It had to be. I made myself feel it. I stared at her and allowed my eyes to get as wet as they could without crying. Crying could possibly blow it, I thought. I needed to be weak but strong, passive but present, bit of a boy but a bit of a man. Okay, Matthew. I kept my eyes fixed on the shoelaces my father had recently taught me how to tie. Mom is coming to pick you up, okay? Just sit here. This is going to be your cubby for the year, Matthew, okay? Maybe ask Mom to make you some chicken soup when you get home, all right? I kept my head down to avoid her seeing any glimpse of joy or deceit or relief. This is my cubby, miss? Okay, I'll tell her about the soup. I'm sorry, miss. She gently rubbed my back and walked away. I kept my head down and waited for Mom. When we walked in the front door, I didn't wait to be told to sit on the couch. I knew not to even attempt to pick up the TV remote. I was under a different power now, and I was in no position to abuse it. Plus, I still had a character to play. Mom came into the living room and put a blanket over my shoulders and looked long into my eyes. They were still wet. Hers were a bit too. She stared at me for what felt like 30 hours and then walked away into the kitchen. The blanket over my shoulders was so warm that sweat beaded and ran from the top of my forehead down toward my eyebrows. I watched my little baby brother scramble after toys on the floor. I no longer wished I was invisible. I wished I was telepathic like my favorite X-Men character, Professor X. Squeezing my concentration in his direction, at his legs, trying to will him to walk over to me and peel off my blanket wasn't working. Not able to be invisible, not capable of using my mind to control others, I left the sweat dripping from my scalp and reclined deep into the couch, having learned that sometimes being a bad boy paid off. Not understanding how this itty-bitty idea that my 4-year-old brain came up with in order to feel safe in my surroundings would eventually be confounded by so many other things. Most of all, my black skin. Here's your chicken noodle soup that your teacher recommended, Matthew, Mom said as she came from the kitchen, cradling a steamy yellow bowl in her 2 strong, ropey, white hands. She looked at me as she gently put it down. And you're going to eat it all. We don't waste anything in this family. Thinking about it now, I don't know if she knew that I knew that she wasn't entirely convinced that I was actually sick. Whatever she thought, she didn't ask any questions. And I ate every last morsel of that bowl of soup. I didn't want to disappoint Mom, and I had become so invested in my idea, invested in the character I had created. I had got myself home to the one place I felt safe, with Mom, and I think she knew that in that moment I needed love, safety, family, and time, which meant more than a day at school. So I ate the soup, and we hugged, and she told me to get better because I was going back to school tomorrow. I knew that I couldn't fake being sick to get home.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?